Good morning, everyone. I wanted to take a moment to create a video describing the changes that have been made to the outcomes data metrics tracking sheet. So basically the sheet that you'll fill out and submit with your outcomes metrics essentially every 3 months. Right now there's an initial deadline of June 13th to gather the historical data for people, your beneficiaries who have been installed so far. So anybody who's been installed so far, there's some historical data for the last 2 quarters for you to collect and submit by June 13th. This is the sheet that you'll use to do that. It's a change from the original sheet that I sent out, and that's why I want to describe the changes to you and go over the sheet with you. So it'll only take a few minutes. So right now, this spreadsheet has 3 tabs to it, 3 worksheets. The first one is where you'll put in beneficiary outcomes data. The second one, you will put in staff outcomes data. And the last one has some definitions of the data. What is the data point? How often it needs to be submitted? How do you submit it? And then a description of what that particular piece of data is, how it's defined. I'm going to touch on a lot of that during this video, but this last tab is a good reference point for you if you're scratching your head saying, wait, how do I determine the number of emergency rooms, etc. All right, so let's start with the, excuse me, with the beneficiary outcomes page. So the first thing you'll notice is there's a blacked out section here. So this is the initial quality of life data survey that you give to your beneficiaries before your assessment. And then every 6 months after installation. That's all done on a jot form. It's submitted online. We get the data online. You do not need to put in anything about the data survey in this spreadsheet. And the other piece that's different from before is we have removed the supported living level, which is something we talked about in a meeting a couple of weeks ago. The supported living level is only determined every three years. It's not particularly effective for our data gathering for the pilot. All right, so the next section here that you will fill out is for hospitalizations. This green marker here, think of that as the installation date for your beneficiary. So for that beneficiary, once they're installed, you would go back to the previous completed quarter. So right now it is June 2nd. The previous completed quarter, fiscal quarter, would have ended on March 31st. So you want to take the quarter ending March 31st and determine how many hospitalizations, and then of those hospitalizations, how many were medical and how many were psychiatric. So you're just putting in a number here based on that person, the records you have for that individual. And then you'll also historically go back to the 4 to 6 month quarter. And here you would also do the medical and psychiatric. So if this happened in June, this marker, what the installation date, then this 3 month period again would be from January through March. So the full quarter prior to installation. And this one would be October to December, which is 2 reporting quarters prior to installation. And then you're going to do every quarter after installation. So again, June being the install date, you would take this quarter that we're in right now and report on hospitalizations for the quarter from April through the end of June. And then every quarter thereafter. In the event you don't have data on medical or psychiatric, just put the total number in the medical column and indicate to me when you send this in that you don't have the data that separates between medical and psychiatric hospitalizations. All right, then moving over to the next area, which is emergency room visits. The very same description about the reporting timeframes applies to emergency room visits. The green marker would be your installation date. This would be the full quarter prior to that installation date, and this would be 2 quarters ago that you'd be doing the reporting on. And in this one, you're going to break it down between emergency room visits that were admit and ones that were not admit, and then also emergency room visits for medical reasons and emergency room visits for psychiatric reasons. So these two, admit and no admit, should equal the total number of emergency room visits. And these two, medical and psychiatric, should also equal the total number of emergency room visits. So if you have 2 that were an admit and 1 that was a no admit, that's 3 total emergency room visits for that quarter. And then the medical might be 0 and psychiatric might be 3. So these 2 totals should equal one another. So 3 here and 3 here. And you're just defining what they were. Were they admit or no admit, or were they medical or psychiatric? And then every quarter close after that, you will also submit this form. All right, so moving over to staffing outcomes. This has a similar format, the green marking the installation date. And again, you're going to go back and you're going to do the average weekly hours of staffing for that person for the prior quarter and for 2 quarters prior, and then every quarter afterwards. So you'd be calculating the average weekly hours of in-person staff support. You see my name and Annie's name here. You saw it on the first sheet as well. That's just a placeholder. You would put the actual beneficiary's name in there. Just wanted to indicate to you to put somebody's name in for the individual. And then what's the staff turnover rate for that individual? Again, green is the installation date. You would do it for that beneficiary's staff, right? So you'd be looking at your turnover rate, but isolating it based on the people who support the beneficiary in that row, and determine if there was turnover for those quarters. And then lastly, the definitions are where you'll get more detail on how to determine what to put in those boxes. So I encourage you to read through those and certainly ask any questions. But the bottom line right now is June 13th is the date for you to submit the prior quarter's data for anyone that you have that's been installed so far. All right. So please reach out with questions as you go, and look forward to seeing this data and seeing some meaningful movement in a positive direction for these data points. Thanks so much for watching the video, and we will connect again very soon.